afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast of Faithfully Speaking, where we take topics of conversations and concerns and issues and questions, and we share and we communicate them in a good, positive, and honest and loving way. Just natural conversation, good, godly conversation. Now, today, thank you all so very much for joining me. I'm trying to get rid of the headphone hair because I just came off the air with you, giving you chances to win tickets, by the way. All week long, we're going to have a chance for you to do that. But August, we know as being National Black Business Month. And so we're going to highlight that actually every Faithfully Speaking podcast, the next two, I'll be on vacation the final Monday of the month, but the next two, we're going to highlight Black businesses as well. But today, I figure we get a start by doing this, by giving you a way of how to start your own business. You know, many times we're like, hey, I want to start doing this. I want to start writing, or I want to start doing whatever business God has given you. And that's many times we say, you know, God's given me a vision. I want to start my vision. I want to start my business. But God also says we have to have knowledge and wisdom. We have to have it, for we perish for lack of it. And so therefore, today, I invited the man who actually helped me start my own business. And yes, it is a Black-owned business within itself. His name is Mr. Darrell Tenney, and he is from the Tennie Group. He is the CEO of this awesome group. He does taxes and accounting and the whole nine. One of the smartest people I know. I'm just going to tell you that. He builds entrepreneurs and businesses, and he actually works in our neighborhoods, in those socioeconomic disadvantaged communities, and helping to build businesses and to build people who own their own businesses. So right now I want to bring on with me, so we can go ahead and start this podcast, Mr. Darrell Tenney. How you doing?
Hello, Ms. Melissa. How you doing? Thank you.
I am wonderful. It's such a blessing to have you on with me. Like I said, you're very special in my heart, because this man, literally, y'all, I keep telling the story. He came on, he did an interview, and he was, giving us information and tips about taxes. And he also said, hey, Melissa, this is what I do as well, is start businesses. And I was telling him about the business. Well, long story short, by the end of our interview, he had come onto the computer and started my own LLC. We named it and everything right there in the studio. This man was the reason behind it, and I still cannot thank you enough. So when I thought about this, I said, who better to have than the man who says, I got you. That's you.
Well, thank you, Melissa. I would say I can not only thank you for the opportunity, the appreciation, and I can tell everyone, this is my friend, and I thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Well, let's go ahead and get started. This podcast, like I said, it's Black Business Month, and what better way to get started than to help out those who say, hey, look, I want to start a business too, or at least I've thought about it. And our first question is, how do you get started? Where do you start? Where do you begin? So, Mr. Tennie, I know that there are so many, different kind of businesses, and you actually chose for me the LLC.
Yes.
Why is it? What are the different businesses, and how do we find out which one best fits us?
Well, one of the things I want to say, I forgot to give a quick disclaimer. This is for taxpayers only. We're not attorneys, but we work with lawyers with our firm that can give you legal advice. So we can, with that quick disclaimer, we always tell people the best way to start an entity is, I want people to understand, first of all, an entity. When you start your business, a lot of people say, well, I woke up this morning, I want to be a businessman or woman. You are. You could be a businessman or woman when you wake up this morning. But you are a sole proprietor. And one of the things that we want our communities to understand is how not to discontinue this thought of, I got to be a sole proprietor. Everything is in my name, on my head. We want people to understand how entities work. We want this to be you, this to be the entity, a total separation from you. We want the entity to carry the liability. We want the entity to carry to receive the money. I tell people, it's not how much money you make, is how you receive the money. And so one of the reasons that we created the LLC in that regards is we wanted it to carry the responsibility, not you. Okay, we want it to have the liability, not you. But one thing about LLCs, INCs, sole proprietorship, partnership, we want people to understand how they work. Okay, now of course, like I just mentioned, you have the sole proprietor. Biggest disadvantage, unlimited liability. But the thing about a sole proprietor, If you're receiving the income, you are responsible for the taxation. You receive the money. And a lot of people say, well, I have ABC Business Enterprise. If ABC Enterprise is a sole proprietor and it made $100 a day, ABC Enterprise didn't make a dime. You, the individual, received $100 a day. And so that's the reason that we look at how entity works. Now, if you are an entity and it's structured correctly, it received $100 a day, not you. Those are some of the things that we want people to understand in the structure first, okay?
You said a mouthful, and I know people are saying, huh? So, we're going to run Mr. Tennie and the Tennie group, the information down there. And I know that's one of the things that you said, hey, Melissa, we want to make sure that you are not taking the brunt of everything. It is your business. This is what you're trying to start. And so we're going to build that. We're going to make sure that, you have the right fit for you. Yep. So you just answered a lot of some of the questions. And my next question was for you. What are some of the first questions we should ask ourselves, or that we should find out before we decide to dive into having a business, itself?
What do you have a passion for? I get people come here all the time saying, well, what's making money? What's doing this? What's doing that? I say to people, whatever you like, whatever you enjoy waking up every morning to do, that's what's going to make money. I tell people one thing about starting a business. If you go into business concentrating on money, you're not going to make it. You got to concentrate on people, because the people don't make the money. You got to have your passion, what you enjoy doing, okay? And when we start these entries, that's the first thing we tell people. What do you like doing? Now, don't get me wrong. Now, there's opportunities to go into markets, but you got to be able to say, I'm going to put the time and effort into that to basically want to be a part of that. Okay. So that's one of the things that we try to tell people. And then we're getting the part of how it should be structured. Where should that begin? Okay. And the first thing we tell people, one thing that when you're looking at an entity, when you want to start an entity, the first thing we look at is making sure that name is available at that Secretary of State. Okay. All right. Now, the second thing is where people make the biggest mistake is that thing called an EIN number. That's what people apply for your EIN number. Okay. But the problem with the EIN number is that people, you can put your name and address, that's easy. But you get down that section that tells you what type, here's where people have the problem. Because they check those boxes and they don't know what are the filing requirements for those types of entities. Okay. Yeah. And that's where they make the mistake from the absolute beginning, that EIN number. That is your foundation. That is your structure. Mm-hmm. And whatever you put down there is what your requirements are. Can I change the requirements? Absolutely. We can go back and change the requirements. But that's one of the biggest thing that people in the space that people make and understand their passion and how we absolutely get started from the absolute beginning.
So tell us the differences between, say, the corporation as opposed to the LLC. I mean, when you say requirements, I know that they take different requirements before you even sign that EIN. You might say, hey, look, you want to start, a food business, a food truck business. Is this a corporation, or is this an LLC, or is this what would that be under the umbrella of?
Here's the thing about a corporation and LLC, okay? When you're doing a limit, when you go down to your Secretary of State and you file articles of organization, you are establishing a limited liability company. If you file articles of a corporation, you are establishing a INC, okay? Now, the one thing about that is a limited liability company, again, we're not lawyers, we refer to them for tax purposes, it avoids a lot of the legal ramifications of a corporate laws of that state, okay, over that state of entity you're in. But people don't understand, when you go down to your Secretary of State, you are only talking to the state, okay? Now, a lot of people say, well, I went to the Secretary of State, I got everything done. No, you didn't. Because you are only talking to the state when you file articles of organization or incorporation. It could be an article, LLP, whatever legal professional company as well. But the thing about this is this now. When you file that limited liability company, which most people have the problem with, that thing called an LLC. A limited liability company is not a corporation. It's an organization of a group of people. I'll repeat that. LLC is not a corporation. It's an organization of a group of people. Well, you remember I went back and I told you about that thing called that EIN number, where people mess with the most from? Right. That's what people have more problems with LLCs, okay? Because when they file that limited liability company, that EIN number is absolutely crucial. So what's going to happen is everybody going to go down and say, it's going to ask them a question. Are you a single member LLC or a multi-member LLC? Most people, if they're by themselves, they're going to check single member. Okay, if you say, me and my buddies, we got together, we ate together, we slept together, I always tell them one thing you never did together, you never made money together. So we want to get it right from the beginning. They're going to check that box, say a partnership, okay? Now, when you form that, when you check that box that says you are a single member LLC, you just told the IRS that I'm going to be taxed as a sole proprietor. When you check that box that you was a partnership, you just told the IRS I'm going to be taxed as a 1065 general partnership. But your intent was to be, this is you, this is the company from tax rate, you wanted to be taxed as a corporation. You should have checked the box corporation. Because that's what most people make the mistake. They check the wrong boxes. They should have checked the box corporation. But when they check that box, it's going to give them a letter, a IRS verification letter that no one reads, okay? It's going to give you a letter. It's clearly going to tell you within a timely manner, as the letter illustrates, within a timely manner, you have to fill out Form 2553 to be elected to be taxed as a corporation. That's where people make that mistake. Because they don't know that they got 75 days to fill out 2553 for the LLC to be elected to be taxed as a corporation. If you don't fill that box out within that form out within 75 days, you are going to be denied. Unless you write across the top of that form in pencil, crayon, blood, and ink, file and pursue rare prop pursuant 2013-30, because that's your late revenue procedure. If you file right across the top of that form, filing pursuant rare prop revenue procedure 2013-30, you will be elected as an S corporate. You will be get that election as an S corporation. That's what people make that mistake. Because when they come in here, they say, oh, my LLC, but guess what? Their tax structure is wrong because they're trying to put it, because with a limited liability company, taxed correctly as an S corporation, not wrong to other forms now. But one thing about that, it is separate from you. It carries liability, not you. Now, you remember when you want to put that company card and everything in, that's where you put the cards at. That's where you put the entities at, in the entity name, not you. It's not going to be in your credit report. It's going to carry liability, and it owns that asset. Now, when people buy these cars and put them in the company name, it does not, you cannot do the payment. That goes on the balance sheet. You carry the depreciation, you capture the depreciation, and it goes to your balance sheet. It won't be on your P&L, your profit and loss, and it won't be in your name because it's owned by the company. The company's owned for it, pays for it, repair, maintenance, whole 9 yards. That's why we want our communities to understand. Stop putting everything in your name. You want to go in the entity name because you can always reset an entity, but you can't reset yourself. You can't reset yourself. You're not carrying a debt. You're not carrying a responsibility, and it can be passed out and shared. Now you can put it in the children's name, and you can put it in the cousin's name. Now you can pass it down generationally. Now, I'm not a fan of putting a 2-year-old something. I want to put my baby name on a corporate structure and stuff. But what I always say is more responsible in passing down generational wealth. Things do happen. We have issues. Guess what? Okay, we had an issue. You got ABC Enterprise today. Guess what? You might have had a problem. But guess what? You can start ABC 2 tomorrow. Because ABC might have had issues, but you can start fresh over ABC 2. And you might have to dissolve ABC, but you're starting fresh. But if you put it in your name, you can't reset yourself.
Woo! That's some wisdom right there. That is some wisdom. Woo! I love it. I love it. And I love the way you break it down so that we can understand it. And, we have to really understand this thing. It's one thing to want to, to break out and do your own business. And yes, God says you shall have it more abundant, have life and have it more abundantly, but we've got to use that wisdom. And that's exactly how we do it so that we don't get ourselves. And like he says, our names and our, I guess, financial necessities with us in a brink or in a tied up in something that we can't get ourselves out of. Now, Mr. Tenney, we're talking about corporations, LLCs, those places that kind of make money for profit, so to speak. But what about those businesses that is a nonprofit and a 501c the same thing?
A nonprofit in a 501c3 is a 501c3. A nonprofit, when you want to form a nonprofit, you have to, again, start at the Secretary of State and file articles incorporate a nonprofit incorporation. Okay. But the thing about it, once you form your articles organization nonprofit, you will be a nonprofit within that state. But you have to apply for the 501c3 election. Now, if I'm not mistaken, my numbers may be wrong, it's like 19 501s. Now, it's not only you can have a 501c for a cemetery, you can have a 501c for church, you can have a 501c for the various other organization group, agriculture, whatever. But the 501c3 is your normal process, but you have to apply for that 501c3, okay? Once you form the state, you are recognized in the state as a nonprofit, but you're not carrying a 501c election until you apply to be taxed as a 501c3, okay? You have to have what they call the exemption, the 501c tax exempt recognition, and that's when you apply for the 501c3. Now, it's easier than it used to be. Okay, you can apply for everything online through the 990 Easy program. We have a whole department that handles that. We have a whole department that assists in helping those structures and stuff. So that's the difference in that now. The nonprofit carries a 501c3 recognition, okay, or a 501 recognition. Now remember now, that's different for a for-profit. Mm-hmm. Now, the nonprofit must be governed by a governing board, okay? You must have a governing board and governs a nonprofit. But a lot of times people come and say, well, I want to start a business and I'm going to start a nonprofit. So I'm going to get all grant money to start a business. Well, we tell people all the time, don't have that misconception that there's tons of money out here for you to start a business just because you're a nonprofit. You can have a nonprofit to develop programs, but you can always collaborate with or collaborate with a for-profit to conduct services now. We tell people that all the time now, okay? Yes, a nonprofit is not a bad avenue to go. It's a great avenue to go. But we tell people a lot of times now, if you want for-profit as an individual, you want to be able to make money as an individual or organization, then you want to be a for-profit. Now, a nonprofit has a governing board, okay? And you can't go out and buy a boat, train, car, and truck personally with a nonprofit. No, you can't, okay? But we can do that with a for-profit. So sometimes for-profit is the best way to go, but you can always have a nonprofit arm that you can collaborate with. Okay. All right.
So what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of having either one?
Well, the advantage of a for-profit, because you as an individual, you as a person can do whatever you want to do with your money after you file legal tax deduction and pay your taxes. Okay. And pay your taxes now. And that's another thing I'm going to touch real quick. A lot of people come to me as a for-profit. I don't want to pay no taxes. I don't want to pay taxes. We tell people as an individual, I don't want to, it's not how much money you receive, how you receive the money. But if you have utilize legal tax deduction, you may not have taxable income. And that's the problem with everyone doesn't understand. You only pay taxes on what's left over, and you only pay taxes on earned income. People come to the office all the time, say, I went down the street and somebody said they're going to hook me up where I don't have to pay taxes. Well, guess what? They get so hooked up, I can't get them unhooked sometimes. We tell people, laws are written by people who have money, for people who make money. Sorry, laws are written for people who make money. Who do you think wrote the laws? Okay? When you receive an income, one of the things that you got to understand, you got to keep proper record keeping. Our department, we have a whole financial department on our floor. We have a whole floor here, okay? We have a whole financial department, and we provide everyone with their profit and loss statement, their balance sheet, the cash flow statement, trial balance journal in one booklet, okay? So what we tell people all the time, if you are operating your business and you're keeping good records, the goal of every business owner is to reduce taxable income. And they have legal deductions here will allow you to reduce taxable income. Now, one thing about a for-profit, you say, okay, one advantage about a for-profit is not going to pay tax if you recognize, because you got to keep good records in a nonprofit. A nonprofit is the same way. You have to keep good records because you're showing everything that you're doing within that nonprofit under that governing board, which you got to abide by your bylaws, okay? One of the things about a nonprofit, you have to abide by the bylaws. So the only thing about the disadvantage I see in a nonprofit is a nonprofit is you can't do things you want to do personally. With your for-profit, you can go buy the boat, car, truck, or train. Again, let me back up. In business for business purposes now. But what I'm saying, you can do more things that you want to do for your business as a for-profit than you can do for a nonprofit. Okay, you can do the things that you want to do. You can acquire, like for example, vehicles for your company if that's what the purpose of that is. You can, when you run a company as a for-profit arm, you have more leeway as the owner or both as the owner to do what you want to do, as long as you're doing it in a way in which you're legally reporting, filing your taxes, reporting tax income. And one thing that people miss, pay yourself from your entity. I tell people all the time, stop the draws. Stop, and I'm not going to say stop in a bad way. If you pay estimated taxes, I would tell anybody who's paying estimated taxes, put yourself on payroll. That is your estimated taxes because you're paying Social Security, Medicare, and you're also paying now unemployment, okay, as well. Your unemployment, okay. A lot of people take draws. If you're going to take a draw from your company, then put yourself on a payroll. Pay yourself, pay your Social Security, Medicare, pay your unemployment. So at the end of the year, instead of you having a 299, you got a W-2. You have a W-2 versus that. A lot of people say, I want to buy a house, I want to buy a car, but everybody come in here with a Schedule C, and saying, oh, I ain't making no money. Well, how you planning on buying a house? You ain't showing no income. And I tell people, you leave a lot of your tax credits on the table because you're not showing income. You have to have income to get your credits. So we tell people how to utilize legal tax deductions.
You tell us a whole lot of things, because that whole keeping yourself and keeping up with keeping yourself organized, that's something you guys taught me there at the Tennie group. Melissa, get you a 3-ring binder and put it in here and put those things. I remember I was like, yes, I've been doing it ever since. So yes, you guys have really taught a whole lot, and you teach so much. So my last, I guess, topic, so to speak, is churches and churches getting started. Because we just mentioned, the nonprofit, for-profit. What would you say or advise if someone's starting their churches? Do they start themselves under or as a nonprofit or as a business for-profit? I'm not sure. And I know that there's so many different legalisms as far as taxes and how they file their taxes. We want to make sure that anyone who's about to start or maybe already in a church, that they're going and doing the right things as far as a church is a business within itself. So we want to make sure that we kind of cover that before we get out of here.
This is what I want to say very quick. Thank you for saying that. Because church operates as a business. One thing I tell people, if you're going to start a church, I would absolutely advise you to start your nonprofit. Okay? I would absolutely go out and start a nonprofit, because as long as you're recognized as a church don't file taxes. Okay, and that we get so many people trying to file taxes in churches, but as long as it's recognized as a nonprofit, it don't file taxes. But let me tell you, we have a conference called the BED conference that we have, and we call the churches. And the name of that conference is how much money do your church have in the bank? People ask us all the time, say, what do you mean? One man said, well, I think that's person. What do you mean? I say, how much money your church has in the bank? He said, well, and I explained it to him. What I mean, when you start a nonprofit, you have your church, how much you have to. How many members in your church have an account with Wells Fargo? How many members have an account with BB&T? How many Truist Bank? How many members have an account with various other banks? So what I mean, start that nonprofit, but you need to keep good financial records in that church, because my purpose of saying it is, why every time we're the only institution that deposits money every Monday morning, but when we want to go buy pews or buy Bibles or something for the church, we got to have a fish fry. Why are we not going to that financial institution and attending that? We have all these members in our churches with accounts in your bank. We need to keep good records so we can now approach those financial institutions, and that way we will be able to acquire funding to grow and build our churches. But a nonprofit is the best way to start. Absolutely, a nonprofit and starting your church. Apply for your 501c3, recognized as a church. But the biggest thing you need to do now is keep good records, because financial institutions are looking for this profit and loss statement and this balance sheet, cash flow, tribe, and but they're looking for that balance sheet. They're looking for these things here. And a lot of people feel we don't have that. So that's one of the reasons that we had that conference, that we're telling people how to start a church correctly, how to apply for the EIN numbers correctly, how to set your bylaws up correctly, but how to keep financial records correctly. And we tell a lot of our people the same thing. Pay yourself in the churches through W-2s. Pay the organists, pay whomever through W-2s instead of 1099s. So that would be the best and absolute start for a nonprofit for that church. Absolutely.
Good information. Now, you mentioned the conference. Can you tell us, maybe when and where and any other, events that you guys are spearheading that will help us with the knowledge that we need to have for beginning businesses?
Well, what we're doing, we're putting the BD conference together now. I travel throughout the country every week. I'm always speaking throughout different states, so all of it. But we are right now getting ready to put together a conference that we were all groups. We got a medical conference we putting up for medical professionals. We work a lot with agriculture. We are the agribusiness way a lot. And so we also have this conference putting together with churches. I speak with a lot of churches, a lot of organizations. We're working with churches now, but we're putting together that BD conference. Now, we will be having dates coming up on our website, the Tenney Group, at www.tenney.com. We'll be having these dates and more coming up of our tours that we are going to be putting together for the fall. And we will be having the church conference in which we want to bring churches together and put our church in the right path. Because, ladies and gentlemen, in our church communities, here's where we can spread that knowledge and spread the information. And that's why we want people to understand the right way to start is businesses, because we want our communities to grow, and the wealth will be in our communities. So if we can develop the wealth within our churches, we will grow our churches as well.
I love it. Always such a plethora of knowledge and love and support. Mr. Darrell Tennie, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm telling y'all, he will definitely they will take you up under their umbrella. And if this is something that you desire to do, I know there's so many other wonderful groups. I only, pinpointed them because they're a Black business of which we're celebrating for the month of August, who are helping other Black businesses to succeed. And so by all means, no matter what you do, who you use, get the knowledge that you need to make sure that you're starting your business the right way.
And we serve clients across the country. We have offices in 5 states. We're steady expanding. So we have a payroll department, financial department, insurance division, taxes department. We got a whole floor. We're welcome to come by our building here, which we occupy the 2nd floor. We are a firm that serves clients around the country, including Puerto Rico now. Okay.
Puerto Rico.
Yes, we are. We're in territory now.
I might have to go visit that office next time I get my stuff.
We love you to. We love you to. We serve the territories now.
Fantastic. But the one, he's right here locally. So definitely check out the website there, and you can see an office that's near you, and you can get all the information that you need. Again, Mr. Tennie, thank you so very much. My love to you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
You are so very welcome. Before we go, I'm not sure, did we get your social media stats? I know we have your website down there, but I know a lot of people like to follow you on social media, anything that you're doing. Can you give us those before we get out?
I think it's www.facebook.com. I got a whole marketing coordinator department here that can tell me. I think we got the Facebooks, and also we got the Instagram. I think we have an Instagram account and stuff and everything. But right now, www.facebook.com, the Tenney Group. That's our social media. We have all that department handles on it. So yes, that we love for you to check out our social media pages and all of our companies.
Follow them, and then we can all go to Puerto Rico together. All right, Mr. Tennie, thank you so very much for being a part of our podcast, Faithfully Speaking, and speaking into our business lives. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it, Ms. Wade. Thank you so much.
God bless you. Grace and peace. All right, y'all, that wraps up another wonderful podcast, Faithfully Speaking, speaking into your lives and having wonderful conversation, giving you good, positive, honest, and loving information right here on this podcast every Monday at 3. Until next time, God bless you. We love you. Great